Welcome to the GEP Roundup, a monthly lowdown from the latest and greatest from GEP and the world of supply chain. Every month, we bring you highlights of the top stories, insights, and events from the supply chain space, so you can stay up to date on everything you need to know. From the latest innovations and technologies to the biggest challenges and opportunities facing the industry, we've got it covered.
Hello, and welcome to the GEP Roundup. I'm your host, Alex. Let's dive into this week's episode where we're zooming in on tariffs, supply chain pressure, and how procurement leaders can stay ahead of the curve. First up, big sustainability news. GEP has expanded its strategic partnership with CDP, the global leader in environmental disclosure. The result? CDP's real-time environmental data is now integrated into GEP Green, empowering organizations to benchmark sustainability progress and meet emerging regulations with confidence. Now to what's shaking up supply chains: tariffs. According to GEP's Global Supply Chain Volatility Index, tariffs are dampening manufacturing activity, especially in North America. Companies are slashing purchasing and inventory, and the index hit its lowest level in nearly 5 years, signaling record spare capacity. What's the response? Many are pressuring suppliers, slashing costs, and diversifying globally to de-risk operations. What should we do about tariffs? It's the question echoing in every C-suite, and GEP has built a simple framework to help supply chain leaders answer it with confidence. Whether you're talking to your CFO, COO, or CEO, trust us, this one's worth bookmarking. Should you wait for more clarity or plan for the worst? GEP says do both. With scenario planning tools, companies can anticipate tariff moves, model multiple outcomes, and pivot fast, no matter what direct trade winds blow. Check out our latest blog for how to stay agile under pressure. European automakers in the US are under tariff pressure, but there's a way through. GEP's latest bulletin outlines strategic sourcing shifts and supply chain adjustments automakers can make to minimize exposure and maintain momentum. I sat down with my colleague Alex Zong to talk more about tariff disruptions and what they mean for procurement teams. Here's that conversation. Welcome to today's segment. As global trade dynamics shift once again and tariff uncertainty remains a major concern, procurement and finance leaders across mid to large enterprises are facing serious challenges, from rising costs to increased supply chain disruption. But there's good news. Modern procurement software, particularly source-to-pay solutions, are stepping up as powerful tools for resilience and agility. To unpack how technology can help organizations navigate tariff volatility and protect margins, I'm joined by Alex Zong, a supply chain transformation expert at GEP. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you, Alex, for having me here.
Let's start with the big picture. How are today's tariff changes creating new challenges for procurement and supply chain teams across industries?
Okay. I like that word, big picture, actually. So I think the current tariff situation, or we call it tariff challenge, actually is a perfect storm of uncertainty, cost pressure, and operational disruption at a global level. And so it is not just about paying more, like obviously pay more tax. So it's not just about that. Even when you think about paying more, right, it's not just the tariff. It is also including the logistic cost, which might increase because of have to change the routes, right? And also custom fees, insurance, right? So a lot of things to be considered. Not even to say you need to consider risk on in addition to cost, which is a very important factor here, right? So you need to consider risk from supplier perspective, from supply perspective, right? A lot of things. So it is about navigating a volatile and a constant shifting environment. So we've been through years of globalization. And during that period of time, I think it's kind of, I won't call it easy, but very focused in terms of, just reduce our supply base, consolidating, get lower cost, and so that you have better margin or profit. And now things, I think, started to change from COVID. People putting a lot of focus on risk, right? Obviously, risk become more and more of a problem. So it's not just solely a cost focus issue, it become risk. And so when you look at from that perspective, we are actually in a different world already comparing to before COVID, quite different. And then when you also look at from protectionism perspective, people look at this tariff situation as a protectionism, right? That's not new either, right? So I think years ago we start to talk about globalization, meaning we see more and more local protection, right? And so this is not a new situation again. But I think what's different today specifically, right? Since beginning of this year, it is that I think the speed and the scale, magnitude is quite different. How this tariff situation hit procurement, right? So I think it in a sense, again, looking at the bigger picture, right? It is almost, I call it a stress test for resiliency, right? And so procurement really need to be more visible, be more agile, and intelligent and proactive.
All right, thanks for those insights. Now, many companies still rely on fragmented or manual procurement processes. And what risk does that create in a fast changing tariff environment?
I think it is a big risk. If you think about this, fragmentation means many blind spots. Manual work means slower response, right? So it's like you are flying blindly. Can you imagine that when you're flying blindly, right? So definitely that will turn risk into reality, right? And I think what procurement and largely supply chain need to do, they should be able to quickly identify the problems, where the problems are, or where the impacts, whether in certain categories, from certain suppliers, certain regions, right? Can they see those? But with all these segmentations and silos, you just can't. You can't see across the board. You can see somewhere, but you cannot see holistically. You can see now, you cannot see in later even, right? When things change, just not getting information, not getting passed to you. And manual work, obviously, I can imagine when something happened, I have to go out and look at, try to find data, try to find my data first. And then I have to look at what's going on in outside world. And it will have a big time for me, a problem to consolidate, right? So it's unthinkable in a situation like this. And exactly as I said, it's a stress test for the system, right? Can you handle that? Obviously, I know I've talked to many customers, and they express their challenges these days. They are not ready, or they didn't really make it a priority in the whole digital transformation time for them, right? So today they experience that, but I think still you can catch up. At least we'll have a 90-day pause, I think. So there is definitely a very big challenge. And look at these challenges, again, as you asked about, fragmentation, as about manual work, I think fundamentally you look at these problems, right? It's not about just tariff or COVID we talked about in the past, a couple of years ago. I think fundamentally, personally, I think there are three challenges, right? One is visibility. You can't see things real time. You can't see things across the board, right? Simply, you just don't have transparency to see things in operations. You cannot make strategic change if you can't do that. And then second is about intelligence. You don't have insight to make decisions, right? Things happen. What am I going to do? Do I just rely on my guesswork, my instinct? I mean, those sometimes work, but many times not. And then collaboration, right? Can we collaborate across functional team quickly? And sometimes getting buy-in is so difficult. You know that, right? Not just, hey, I do this and let's do this. And people need to have data, need to have a good reason. And obviously, with all the things you said, teams just can't do it successfully. So then you don't have speed. You are in a very, very difficult situation if you don't have speed, if you very much lag behind and things keep changing.
Yeah. Can't keep up with what's going on.
Right.
Now, how does a modern source-to-pay solution help organizations respond faster and more strategically to tariff disruptions?
Okay, and I think the answer, right, resides in those three key challenges that I just mentioned a minute ago.
Mhm.
And so with those challenges, I think procurement organization, and many of them actually started years ago, 10, even 15 years ago, right? And they start to build the modern application and procurement to cope with different challenges in their operations. And so I think, especially in the last, those 10, 15 years, there's a lot of progress in the application development. And in the last 2-3 years, picked up very quickly, accelerated with all these AI capabilities, right? So I would say these are a few things. One is real-time visibility, right? So the modern application can really provide you real-time because they can connect data, connect different data sources, right? Can connect data internally, your transactional data, can connect the data outside of your organization, public data, third-party provided data, structured data, unstructured data, semi-structured data. So can you imagine that the digital platform can collect all these data and then they can tie these data together? And the next thing, right, I would say is that analytics, the insights that modern platform can give you. So it's not only I can see what's going on, I can see the implication of what's going on, right? So you see that type of insights, intelligence can give us very good capability of decision making. What am I going to do with my suppliers, with my strategy, category strategy, right? Even with situations like sustainability, right? So a lot of things that can happen, and I would be able to make decisions quickly because of have these insights and data. And then I think third is risk management. The modern capability, because the focus by and large been cost, and still I would say cost saving still on the top. Not to discount that, but what we are saying here today, complexity really comes in. Based on what we said earlier, right? It's not just cost. It's about risk. It's about sustainability, about quality, right? About on-time delivery, about a lot of things. So I'm saying this beyond cost, risk is so important. And can you manage that? Do you have a bigger picture? Do you have a dashboard, right? Do you have that analytics that you can pull data, you can drill in, you can click, think through to get what you need? You just can't. In a risk situation, I need to know a lot. So, but modern platform can give me that, right? So it's not simply a calculation on my spreadsheet. Risk cannot really calculate simply on my spreadsheet. So that's I would say the third. And the fourth one is the whole notion of orchestration. And it is so important, and it's become so a hot topic these days in the past 12, 24 months. It's really a very important topic in the supply chain application space, right? So the whole orchestration really is to look at the workflows. We have so many different workflows in procurement, and how these workflows can really flow, right, smoothly, seamlessly, and connect to different parts of the organization. And also this also talk about is about automation, right? Can a lot of things being automated, and so that we can really collaborate. Automation does not exclude human. I want to make sure of that, right? a lot of automation done, and so that we can collaborate better, because some of the subtasks are being done by the system. So we can, as human, we can collaborate better. Okay. And so to do that in the modern system, you have AI. And more recently, we talk a lot about agentic AI. I hope we have a podcast soon to talk about agentic AI. It's a very interesting topic. It's my passion too. But AI in general, right? Generative AI, traditional AI, plus now the agentic AI. Local platform is also a tremendous development in the space that allows procurement, right, with very little dependency on IT, that procurement that we can do changes on the fly, right? So that allows that whole orchestration, because again, you think about the fast changing environment, fast shifting environment, that there are a lot of things happen. And do I have to go to IT all the time, depend on them to change things for me? There's no time. You have to do it yourself. So this low code capability on an orchestration platform, you can really do that, or orchestration on a local platform, should I say that, right? So you can really do that. And then I think the next one is, I'll say this last one, probably have too many things going on, but the last one I would say mention here is category management, because category management has been in operations or in our discussions, in the strategies, for many years, even 10, 20 years. We talk about it in procurement. But I think we never able to manage category to a very deep level like we can do today, right? Look at from cost perspective, supplier perspective, risk perspective, right? Sustainability perspective, many different perspectives, compliance and so forth, that we can really, narrow it down to where we want to see, and we are able to see it. So those are the things I think modern procurement platform can give procurement. And then they are on a very different scale. Like in the past, they are still, running, on the ground, in a caravan. But now they can actually fly. Truly, they can fly in the sky.
All right. For finance and procurement leaders who are watching, what's the first step they should take to prepare their organizations for tariff-driven volatility in the months ahead?
Very good question. And I think I don't want to answer this question in a very traditional way, I would say, because people would think, the first thing I need to calculate my tariff. I just need to calculate. I need to know, right? And I think those things will come quickly. I think a lot of technology providers start to work on this, even way before this, right? So, calculating tariff, look at country of origination, this capability will come. But I think more important, based on what we just discussed in the past, 15, 20 minutes, right? I think what is very important is the mindset change. So tariff hits now business, and procurement is very close to this hit, right? Because this is really a supply side of crisis. We talk about a lot of crisis. It's mostly happen on the market side, right? Market up and down, you go to market, customer side. But this particular tariff really hit on the supply side. With the first impact, the cost of importing these stuff from my suppliers, right? This supply side of a problem. So I think we would have to change our mindset. Just look at simple calculation. We need to look at this as you actually perfectly asked the question, bigger picture, right? At the beginning. So it is about not just the reducing cost, but also looking at the value, that the true value we can procurement and finance together bring to the table, which includes cost, right? Includes risk, includes supplier alternative resources, a lot of things we need to consider in this whole tackle of the challenge. So that's one thing. And I would say then the first thing, and then obviously you need to improve visibility. That's the first most important thing, right? In technology, by things doing manually, in a silo, you just can't see things well, right? So we need to really have visibility. And to do that, you definitely have to improve the level of digitization in the operation, right? So we have to drive that. That's no question. And you can do this, step by step. You don't need to do it, all of a sudden, in one overnight, because you just can't, right? But you need to start. I think it's very important, and many of us know that, but still some of us don't really see that very clearly. We need to focus on improving visibility across the board, and then once you have visibility, you can do agile actions, right? A lot of action-driven capability you should bring in, right? And then I would say again, lastly, in terms of actually considering specifically in tariff environment, that category management, I would say, is important, right? We in procurement still thinking category management how we do years ago, but now we have very good tools to manage very specifically in real time, right? Globally and locally, right? We have a lot of tools, including market intelligence, right? And then AI will bring that into very deep insight, and cost models, cost drivers, a lot of things actually available to us to drive that. So to tackle tariff, because who knows in 90 days, who knows in next year, this thing just keep changing and hard to predict, right? What by having these, you start to do, and I believe will bring organization in a much better position soon.
All right, Alex, thank you so much for joining us today for this segment, and it was great to get your insights.
Sure, my pleasure, and thank you. And I like to have more conversations like this in the future.
Of course.
All right, thank you.
Thanks.
Let's switch gears. Ever wish your facility maintenance team could prevent breakdowns before they happen? With IoT and AI, they can. Our latest white paper explores how advanced tech is turning reactive maintenance into proactive performance, cutting costs and boosting sustainability. For mid-sized companies, manual procurement is a growth blocker. If your team is still stuck in spreadsheets, it's time to modernize. GEP's new white paper breaks down how AI is enabling smarter, faster procurement that actually supports growth. And finally, the EU has delayed the rollout of CSRD sustainability rules, giving companies more prep time. But don't let that pause fool you. This is the moment to get systems, data, and strategies aligned. Our blog breaks down what's changing and how to stay ready. Thanks for tuning in to the GEP Roundup. If you found today's episode helpful, don't forget to like, comment, share, and of course, follow our YouTube channel for more insights into supply chain, procurement, and global trade. Until next time, stay resilient out there.